All right, so we are live streaming this. And so thank you everybody for joining. Today is going to be an exciting day. Yesterday, we talked about setbacks and why we have to reframe the way we look at setbacks as opposed to something that's, a hindrance or a defeat for us, but rather than a check-in for us at some point to be where we are at and how we can move. Today, I'm going to take some time and sort of share my story of why I do what I do and how I came about doing what I do. Again, this is a really informal. We have some people that are in the live stream, some people that are here. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining. This is a 21-day challenge. So we go live at 12 o'clock every day for 15 minutes, really. It's bite-sized information that you get every day. So what are the lessons that we learn from a butterfly? Before I go to my story, I really started resonating with this particular story of a butterfly when I went through my life. When a butterfly first starts out, it's a cocoon, right? It starts out as a cocoon. It actually creates an envelope around itself. It spins silk around itself and then makes a shell out of it so that it cannot be attacked from somebody from the outside. And in our lives, we normally do that with ourselves. We start creating protection as soon as we lose our naivety from being a child. And so what ends up happening is that we create these judgments, these speculations, these rejections, all of that around us. And what ends up happening is that our ego becomes really strong and we start fighting with the universe. And what I learned through that is that when you start fighting with the universe, you have 100% chance that you're going to lose. But when you look at the butterfly, it has to actually go through this process. And when it's ready to emerge, it actually has to drain all of the water that it has before it can become light and fly. And so in the interim, if anybody were to actually help them out and say, you know what, let me break that cocoon and come out, it would no longer be able to fly. And so what do we learn from that is that sometimes when we have a difficult time, it may just be a wake-up call for us, because remember that the universe always conspires for your highest good. So if it's okay with you, let me ask you a question, right? How many of you here set an alarm clock in the morning to wake up? Either one? Right?
Yes.
Most of us, yeah? Right, both of you put it, right? Now, the second question is, if you're anything like me, I actually snooze it 2 or 3 times, right? So I set my alarm for 6 and it's like, okay, 6:10, 6:15, 6:20, and then I'll get up. The challenge is that our lives actually work very similar. And if you are able to tap into your intuition, you will see that the universe is constantly giving you calls, or we tend to snooze them or ignore them. So this is my story. It was November 27th, 2017, almost 4.5 years ago now. I used to be in the furniture distribution business. We had a successful distribution and manufacturing business in the furniture world. And at 11:30 at night, I got a call that I got a call. Now, normally I don't get a call at 11:30 at night. And when I do, I get really stressed and anxious because it's one of two. It's either my business security company that's calling, or it's my parents who live in Edmonton who are further away, because my phone hardly rings. The fact that it rang at 11:30 at night actually gave me quite the nerves. So I picked it up and it was a security. And I go, okay, you know what? It's a cold, wintry day out there. It's okay. It's probably just one of the doors that's ringing, or, something is happening with the wind. But they told me that there was a fire where I was. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. You know what? I'll have to go check it out, because now I have to drive. Now, normally it's about a 20-minute drive to work. That 20-minute drive was my longest drive, because as I approached closer and closer to it, I could see smoke in the corner of where my building was. And when I got there, there was a huge fire. And that day I lost everything. 25 years of my life that I had built the business actually went up in flames. Now, when I reflect back on what happened, I realized that along the way, there were many opportunities or knocks in my life that I ignored. We all get these in our lives. They start with something really small, an intuition or a feeling that we have. And when we ignore that, it becomes a little bigger one, because remember, the universe conspires for your highest good. So you get a second call and a third call. And when you don't respond, just like any loving parent would, you get a smack. And that smack is what I got. And that's what changed everything for me. So when I realized that, what I realized that I had to do is to be present. I remembered that I had always had a choice. I just ignored to have that choice. And that often we end up complaining about the challenges that we have, but how can we change that into gratitude? So let me share you a story that I think is really important to share today. There was a guy, and a successful entrepreneur, let's put it that way, that was driving around, and he was in his beautiful brand new Jaguar. And as he was driving the streets, he couldn't really see the kids. And all of a sudden, somehow, he heard a noise. Somebody threw a brick on his car. And I've gone through this. A small thing can really trigger your anger. And so he got out, went and found that kid, and started yelling and screaming at him. Now, I've done this so many times, right? And so he said, do you know how much this car costs? Do you know the damage that you have done? Do you know that you should not be playing with bricks? And the young kid said, I'm sorry. I tried to stop a lot of cars, but nobody was responding to me. So the only choice that I had was to send and throw a brick so somebody would stop, because my brother is in a wheelchair. And as I was walking him, he tripped and he fell over, and he's too heavy for me to carry. And he's hurt and I can't help him. Can you please help me, sir? And at that point, the gentleman was able to reflect back and say, did he react a little too quickly? Did the situation change for him totally when he looked at that story? And so he helped that young boy, and he looked after his brother. He took care of him. And so when the entrepreneur left, he decided that he was not going to fix that dent. And the reason he wasn't going to fix that dent is because that was going to be his reminder of how precious life is, that how we can react to something so quickly, that sometimes when something bad happens to you, it's not that it's happening bad, it's actually a lesson to learn. And so do we want to go through our lives so that somebody has to throw a brick at us to get attention? And that's what happened to me when I got the fire. I actually had somebody, the universe, throw me a brick. Now, how do we change that ahead of time is really what this journey of 21 days is all about. We want to make sure that we do not fall into this trap of having to get somebody to throw. So we're always going to be faced with challenges, right? So let's look at the definition of a challenge and a solution, right? A challenge is anything, an objection or query as to the truth of something. And we end up doing this is, we look at this challenge and we now have to prove it. We want to be able to work with it and find something that, we can address it with. And then we start looking for solutions, right? And we want to solve that problem because we know everything, right? We know how to do things. So we start solving it as opposed to looking at it. Let's look at other things that we can learn lessons from, right? So the first one is gold, right? Fire is the test of gold. When gold has to come out in its pure form, it has to go through immense amount of heat before it can become pure. So our adversity is what actually becomes more important for us because we become stronger. Mahatma Gandhi says fire is the test of gold, adversity. Fire is the test of gold. Adversity is of strong men, right? So when we go through adversities, we look at it as something that's back, that's, defying for us. And we start solving the problem. But can we look at it as an opportunity, as a mark in our journey to say, okay, where are we at? Do we need to change course? Because remember, we always have a choice, right? Let's look at another example. Diamonds. We all have heard, right? It takes coal to be under immense amount of stress before it becomes a diamond. And now a diamond is something that never gives up, right? It's coal that never gave up. It continued to be under pressure, under pressure, under pressure until it became a diamond, right? And look at this. The diamonds are formed underground. It takes a volcanic event to bring them up. So we're going through the small petty challenges and stuff like that, and we need to learn with them and how do we consistently, constantly change it so we become a diamond. And then when we become a diamond, we actually will erupt and there will be a greater challenge. Just because you start solving the smaller problems doesn't mean that they're not going to have an impact in your life to be able to look at that and have you change. They will constantly be there. But it is a matter of how are you converting the small amount so that you don't feel the big stress and pressure when it comes. Because a diamond has learned how to deal with the stress. Oil is another example. The other one that I really like is something that we eat on a constant basis, right? Wheat. The grain has to be cleaned, and then it has to be conditioned. And then you need to add water to it. Then the kernels have to break down. Then it has to go into milling so that it can be cracked. And then it becomes wheat. But at that still point, the flour or the ground wheat or wheat that we have is still not complete. We then, put it with water and mix it and put it together and put it in the oven to heat it. And then we eat. But at what point does wheat complain to the universe or to the creator and says, hey, you know what? This is way too much problem. I'm going to give up. Never. It keeps on giving, keeps on giving. So until we find our purpose, we will always complain. Once we know our purpose, the amount of stress and pressure we go is just a preparation for our journey for us to be complete, right? I love this quote that I found, right? Nobody lays awake at night wondering if the wheat they raised was truly happy and fulfilled, being made into bread. Right? It doesn't worry, and the person that is actually going through it or harvesting the grain doesn't ever question the grain. Are you ready? Are you sad? Are you happy? It knows its purpose and it's there to fulfill that purpose. And so can we take examples from the universe and say, if all of these things that we value in life, diamond, gold, wheat, oil, if all of those things that we value in life, if nature is teaching us that there is amount of stress that they have to endure, we as creation of the universe also have to go through that to find our purpose and be truly us. And so the experience that I had with the fire, until I really understood this, I started complaining about it too. So I had gone into this very dark space. And when I realized that I needed to come out of that space, I had a choice. Then I realized my true purpose. And this is why I do what I do, because now I help entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals who are getting set back to see a different way of looking at it. Let me end with this final slide over here because we're just getting to our 15 minutes and I want to respect time because I did go over yesterday. This is our current reality on the bottom. This is our desired future, right? There's this gap or resistance that's in between over here. And this over here is how much allowance we're willing to do. The greater the allowance, the greater we get to our desired future. Resistance is like a light bulb, right? Those switches that we have where you have a dimmer where it goes up and down, right? The greater the resistance, the less the light you get. The higher the resistance, higher the resistance, the less light you get. The less the resistance, the more bright it shines. So if we want to shine, we need to remove that amount of resistance that we have, right? Reduce the amount of resistance, increase the amount of allowance. And so when we can move from our current reality to a greater reality, that action requires us to look at our beliefs. That action requires us to look at our emotions, our identities. We need to correct actions that we're not taking because we always have a choice. And what if we were to able to tap into that choice? Right? We hold on to our past events and trauma. I could have done that, right? The fire was a trauma that really broke me and my family. I lost 25 years of sweat and blood, but I've looked at it and changed it. And you look at most people that are successful in life, including great motivational speakers like Joe Dispenza and Tony Robbins, the first thing they talk about is what drove them from adversity into success. So can we look at our setbacks as actually an opportunity and not a drawback? Because if we focus on the negative sides, then we get caught into it and we keep on staying into our current reality, and often we go into our past reality. So to be able to move to a desired future, we want to be able to break that resistance, be more in allowance, and we do this by addressing all of these things. So the next 19 days, we're going to look at each one of these. How does emotions impact us? How do our limiting beliefs impact us? What identity are we creating for ourselves? What are we doing with the trauma that we had in the past? How are we resolving it? Do we want unwanted circumstances in our lives? And can we change that negative vision that we have into manifesting what we want? I am exactly at 15 minutes, but I will keep this open for a couple of minutes just to have some final thoughts and questions if anybody has any. See, somebody is in the chat. I'm so excited for that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's going to be fun. It's taken me a long time to put all of this program together. I'm so excited about this program. And I am only excited because I have over here, Hazrat Ali says that if you change one life, you've changed humanity. To me, as long as we have one person that is going to have one experience that walks out of this, it will be a task that I will be very excited about. So thank you for joining. Any questions, anybody? Any thoughts? If not, I appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye. See you.